Welcome back, everyone. It's so nice to be back in this studio. And today I am blessed to be with the lovely Louise Wilson. And just a real quick background here because most of you in my world would probably not know of her. I haven't mentioned her before because she's relatively new to my world. But oh my God, we've hit it off right off the bat because we have so much in common. And I cannot wait to get into this because so honestly, strap yourselves in and here we go. But Louise Wilson is an awesome spiritual entrepreneur, carving her own way and path, and with the way of the successful entrepreneur, which is her branding and her way. So, welcome, Louise. So happy to finally have you here.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's a real pleasure to have this time with you, and also to have this time with your listeners and with your viewers. So thank you for that.
That's awesome. And just a quick, I forgot to double check. Where are you actually joining us from today? Because I know we've got time zones. You're in the opposite side of the world, but whereabouts are you joining us from? Recording this one from?
So I'm beaming in from Heiltsuk traditional territory. So I'm actually living on the central west coast of BC, Canada. I live on a very remote island. There's just like 65 residents. And then across from where I live is the Heiltsuk First Nation. So it's one of the largest coastal First Nations here on the BC coast. And yeah, I've been living here for 22 years, 23, coming up for 23 years. And yeah, it's a
Wow.
deeply special place and holds a very, very special place in my heart. Yeah.
I just love that because even just hearing you say that, it's like I know that for myself, and I'm pretty sure that everybody else listening goes, "Can we come and visit?" Because that sounds like such a spiritual, like connection place. Because like even though I just conjure up this massive, beautiful, like just deep rooted, just scented. I feel just hear you talk about that makes me feel so calm on the inside. Is that what you find? Just out of curiosity, why there? 23 years. It says you hold a special place in your heart. Why there?
Yeah. And I know we'll be diving more into this about
Yeah.
following your intuition, following that spiritual calling, following that soft, quiet voice inside of you. And for me to be here, I was originally living in Amsterdam. I was the international finance manager for Greenpeace International 25 years ago. And
Wow.
I came to Canada I was on a spiritual quest, like I'd at that time separated from my first husband, and I was in not a great place. It was a very, very difficult and traumatic breakup. But it kind of forced me to, discover really what I was actually capable of doing, having lived in a very kind of like passive existence, not really believing in myself, and not willing to take risks and chances in my life. All of a sudden, when you feel as though you've lost everything, you have nothing left to lose. And it's unfortunate that I had to get to that place really to have my massive sort of aha and spiritual awakening and spiritual journey,
Yeah.
which brought me to Canada. And then I met my husband through a series of serendipitous circumstances. And honestly, I'd only known him, a matter of weeks, but I knew something deep inside of me knew this was the man that I would marry and that I wanted to be with him. So as soon as I got back to Amsterdam, I quit my job and I'm like, I'm going to
Wow.
Canada. I didn't know how it was going to unfold. I didn't know how, as I look back, I think, oh my God, like I was crazy because, I hadn't done the whole immigration thing. I just
Yeah.
knew that it was going to work out. And it did, but, a lot of my friends and family hadn't even met Rob. So they were like, who is this guy? And you're crazy, But I think a lot of the work that I do is really about listening to that sort of
Hmm.
soft, quiet voice that sometimes becomes an incredibly loud voice when we allow it to, and when we're not listening, and listening to it and taking those bold leaps of faith, which I think in entrepreneurship is something that we do as visionaries, right? We have these big
Yes.
visions and dreams, and it's about following that. So that's
That's
kind of how
it's
a bit of a
wow.
roundabout story. Yeah.
But
I very
what
much
a
guided,
change!
you know. Yeah,
But what a massive
yeah.
change, like Amsterdam to like super. Well, I can't even my imagine. I'm kind of imagining kind of very remote West Coast
Very
BC
much.
here. It's
Yes.
definitely a tree change by the sounds of it, and a sea change.
It
But
was
yeah,
huge.
and that's mean like leaving all that behind, and would you say it's like a rebirth for you in that sense
It
when you found it?
definitely was. It was. And, those rebirths, they aren't always easy, but they
No,
do bring like massive change. I think what's really interesting for me is that, my job defined me. Like I was very, very good at what I did. And I had, a lot of, there was a path, a very clear path for me within Greenpeace, like
yeah,
of where I was going and what I would be doing. And I kind of closed that door, and it was so clear to me. Something deep in me knew that this is what I had to do. And even though I was kind of given opportunities to go back and, offer the opportunity to be their political director and to be guided into that process, I couldn't do it. Like I knew
yeah.
that this is what I'm meant to be doing. And it wasn't easy at all, I'll have to say, because I had to reinvent myself, and oftentimes you have to, when you're breaking ground and breaking trails, which is what we do, I think, I think your listeners, are they predominantly viewers, are they predominantly entrepreneurs, would
I
you
know
say?
there's
Or
some there, but like everybody's in a different. Well, I've got a lovely, robust audience that are listening. Like some are literally just beginning on their journey and are kind of awakening to it, and that's why I love this. Is this why? And I was talking about it's so important, like the value in our story. Like, just hearing that, I'm like, what a significant thing because I know even though they may not be entrepreneurs per se, but people who have had that where, and I think this is happening more so now, like in the very
yeah.
moment and the energy at the moment is that we're looking at this and like people are having or are being called forth, and we've had that experience like you going through that in obviously with that career and having that path. I had that back in 2011. I had that pathway. No, universe had a different idea for me and all the rest of it. So everybody's on their different part of their journey. It doesn't matter where they are, but that's why I feel like when we talk about the rebirth, it doesn't matter where. I think it's important when people say, I love that when you said you felt that the job defined you.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, just change came and you had to embrace that change. So,
Yes.
kind of coming back to that, and you said that it was obviously that time you had to listen to that little voice inside. Would you say that you had that little voice like with you, or it was there you didn't listen to it as much, or it's like, or was it more of like that was just a massive awakening and that quiet voice all of a sudden had a lot more space to be heard? How would you describe that particular like
I,
transition there?
it's interesting because I think if I think back to as a child, I didn't know what it was, but as a young child, one book, I'm a dyslexic, so I haven't read many fictional books, but
Mhm.
one book that really spoke to my heart was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I was I
Great
think
book.
7 or 8 years old. A great book. And
Great
it was
book.
that whole idea that there was this mystical, magical world, on the other side of the wardrobe. And as a child, I think I knew that within me. I knew that there was this other world
Hmm.
that I could connect to and connect with, and that when I did, it would open up all these other worlds to me. And so I'd sit in my wardrobe and I'd be pushing up against the wall, just thinking that the door was going to open. Of course, it never did, and it took me several decades to figure out how to step through, to those other realms. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about the work that I do, because I know now, having spent so long figuring it out, I know the easy ways to do it.
Yes.
And I think in all of this, listening to that soft voice, I think it started to get louder and louder and louder, the further down my spiritual path that I was going. So definitely, I think in at Greenpeace, that was the, I think the breakup was the beginning. It was the
Okay.
beginning of me taking chances, going for things that I never would have gone for normally, it working out and thinking, oh, it worked, right? This gut thing, it worked, this worked. But
Yeah.
it, it's through that process of action kind of creates momentum. And we get to, by taking action, we get to see that, oh, wow, yeah, that does work. So I think that's kind of, it's got louder and louder and stronger.
And I love that because just watching you, I could see you recalling those moments of when that's happened. And you just lit up like a Christmas tree. I could see you go, yeah, that did work. Hang on, when I did
Yeah.
trust that, it actually did happen. And it's like, and it's always nice when I see people have those kind of recollection because it is. And I think a big point for a lot of our listeners and viewers is that you do have to reflect on what has worked because that's something that we tend to forget moving forward. I think because you've got to look at, go, hang on, when it didn't really lead me astray. This did work when I listened to that voice. This did work when I listened to this, and I think it's a real struggle for some people to get used to listening to that voice. And I think, but I love that story about kind of going there. But now we're going to fast forward. So just very quickly for our listeners and viewers. So summarizing where you're at, you've done all this. This is your journey. So, what are you doing now? How are you helping these lovely spiritual entrepreneurs? Give us the rundown. I want to give it to us all. Or don't leave anything out. I want to hear it. Everything.
Yeah, so essentially, what I help entrepreneurs to connect to their soul source, source energy, which actually kind of allows them to experience that, come into alignment more with that higher vibration, that higher frequency, so that they can start to create and manifest the abundant business and life that they dream of. Because, I think as entrepreneurs, we're visionary, we have these really big goals. And, oftentimes the conscious mind is like, you're crazy. You can't do that. You've never done
Yeah.
that before. What makes you think you can do it? And, as I say to my clients, that's just because the conscious mind and the ego only knows what it knows.
Yeah.
It can't take you to a place it's never been before. Whereas your infinite self, we're infinite, immortal spiritual beings, your infinite self has that higher vision, it has that higher view. And I see it like, we're infinite, immortal spiritual beings in a physical body down on this physical plane. And I almost liken it to being in a maze, right? You kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, you don't see the bigger picture always,
Yep.
but your soul does. And the more that you can open yourself to that guidance, the more that you raise your frequency, you can, glide through life a lot more because you allow
Yes.
yourself to be guided instead of being down in the weeds. And I think what tends to happen, I'll just say this one last thing, I get so passionate about this, is
I can tell. That's
conscious
right. You keep
mind.
going. Don't leave it out.
Our
Love it.
conscious mind will always argue for our limitations. It will always tell you all of the reasons why you
Mm.
can't do something, and
Yep.
because it doesn't know. Whereas when you allow yourself to listen and be guided, you'll be shown the way, the path. And the more you take action on that guidance, the more the guidance comes through and the easier it becomes. So, through the process with my clients, I work with my clients through guided soul journeys and
Love
through
guided
traveling
soul
in the dream
journeys. Yeah.
time. Yes.
Love them.
Working in the
Love
dream
them.
time, another
Oh.
really powerful way to connect. And then I
Yep.
have another process, a Clarity Now workshop, which is kind of a distilled version of all that I do. And it's just a 3-hour process. And that too can help you just very quickly tune in, so that there's no mistaking the guidance that comes through. Because oftentimes we can be like, is that the message? Is that what you know what I mean? It's hard to discern
Yes.
what you're supposed to be doing, right?
Oh, look, it's interesting. You're doing the Clarity Now workshop, and I'm like, it just at this time I also run and I've created a syncing signs workshop because the common questions that I get asked when I'm
Wow.
going around is like, so is that the sign? What's the message behind that? And it's like, that's well and good, but I'm not your walking, talking Google, your spiritual Google. You can't just, ring me or ping me and say, by the way, what's this? The idea is you got to delve in and work it out for yourself. And I think that's what I love about obviously that great short, sharp Clarity Now workshop can offer that for people as well, kind of like learn to trust that voice, but discover it for themselves. So through that, in
Exactly.
that particular workshop, you're saying they're going to receive that kind of clarity, but are they also getting that understanding of how to decipher the things and the messages they're getting?
Yes. So basically, I mean, and I love that you taught to think about signs because, the soul source, it speaks to us through imagery. Imagery is
Mm,
the language of our soul, because when you think about it, there's signs, there's synchronicities, um, tarot card readers, they read a tarot deck. It's all imagery. But in the workshop that I do, we're working with imagery, you're working with the language of your soul, so you're
mhm,
actually, we do soul journey to kind of open that line of communication to create that clear channel, and then through the power of imagery you're creating the vision. So it's, some people might think it's a vision boarding workshop. It's not a run of the mill vision boarding but workshop. You're actually working with imagery to create the vision, but it's a downloaded vision, if you will. And so I think oftentimes when people, maybe create a vision board, they're like, oh, I want a car and I want a house and I want, but this is goes way deeper because it's actually slipping beneath the surface of what your
mhm.
conscious desires are to access your subconscious mind and your soul to what you really and truly want.
Yeah.
And then through that guidance, you're able to, it's a roadmap that's created. And as we work with the vision, it's a mirror reflection of what your soul wants. And through that, we begin a conversation, where you begin to start to uncover, what's getting in the way, where are you going, what do you need to do? And I think the imagery is a huge piece of that. So I love that you mentioned that about working with imagery because it's very, very
It's a big one.
powerful.
And that's going to bring me to another important question because I know that I've a few of the members that I have and a few people that obviously questions get asked when going around and doing stage work and whatnot is that like even with this, and I love that because you're going beneath that conscious level. And that's the inner power. That's why Inner Power podcast is like, let's get past this, let's get past that superficial stuff. So once you really kind of tap in and harness that, you really start to get a clearer vision. But that's the vision. And I think this is what's really important. That's why you and I connected. So because it's like we know the power of that. And for anyone, whether entrepreneur or not, but if you can access that part of yourself and start to tap into that kind of imagery, then you're going to have a massive magnet or pull factor that's going to help get you through life a lot quicker rather than trying to navigate through the maze, like you were saying, with the conscious mind going, is this the right direction? Maybe I should do this, or maybe that's the right way. Whereas when you do tap into that energy, it's just a knowing. But what's
It
interesting,
is.
you talk about that imagery. Now, when you're talking about this imagery, you say it's more like that deeper vision. Now, a couple of people mention they go, "Oh, but I'm not really good with visualizations, or I'm not really good with like when I meditate or I journey, I don't really see a lot." With this, with what you're talking about, is that going to be problematic, or is this vision coming in different ways?
So basically, I guess with the journeying, you can actually, what I love about this is that when I take my clients on soul journeys, sometimes they can fall asleep, right?
Yes.
And you can
I'll put my
actually
hand up
think
for
like,
that one.
and,
So, whoops, that one slipped a bit too deep on that one.
yeah, and there's this automatic assumption that because we've fallen asleep that we're missing out, and but
Mm,
dream time is so powerful because when you're asleep, you're moving into those higher states and realms. So even though you're sleeping, there's another deeper aspect and level of yourself that's doing the work. And so when you kind of like, if you do fall asleep in the journey, it's not an issue, it's not a problem because your soul knows the truth of who you are and it will share with you, you know um that truth. So what happens is that we journey, the lines of communication are opened, and then we go really fast. You're actually working, you have a pile of images that you've collected and you just grab the things that speak to you in the moment. And that's so important because it's about being in your intuition, allowing that to guide you and not being in your head. And
okay.
so as you gather the images and create the vision, it's totally, done from a very intuitive place. And then once you have that vision, I have a very powerful shamanic process that we use in which we begin to uncover the deeper meanings around your vision and what you've created. And that's where the guidance comes. That's where, the messages really powerfully come through, and there's no mistaking it. So my clients always are like, OMG, I can't believe that, I discovered this or that. Or I've had clients be stuck and then realize, oh, I'm on the right path. They just didn't know it because things happened so
Uh,
fast and it wasn't clear to them. So yeah, the soul loves the truth, and it will always share with you the truth of who you are.
and I think it brings up a valid point because I've been going through this again myself personally. And I always say to people, when you get these, like whether it's the images, the visions, or even like the words and the feelings or the knowing, like certain words or phrases will kind of pop up, and it's like I think this like I always say to people that when you're getting messages from, like, when you're connecting with your soul and from universal spirit, they're trying to, it's like they will take the easiest way possible to deliver the message to you.
Yes.
It's kind of like water and gravity. It will always take the path of least resistance to reach its destination. And because, considering how jumbled and lovely and our lovely conscious mind runs interference on that on a constant basis, that's why I think they jump in and go, we'll tell you like this and we'll give you that. And but I always find too is like it's important to learn to trust yourself with what's coming through, but also learn to work through what's been said, because sometimes I don't know whether you've fallen victim to this or maybe even people in your classes, because I've personally fallen victim to it. Was I took a message or I took this vision, I'm like, cool, this is what it is. And then I've only found that I completely misinterpreted it with my conscious mind at the time. And I'm sure that, my viewers and listeners probably go, yeah, that's me, Pete. Like I suffer from that. It's just in through this process, and when you're taking people through like your journeys or your vision process or the clarity now, like, what's your advice to someone with helping to work through that, to go like either
I
working
love
through that
this.
message
Yeah,
or deciphering that message?
I love this question. Thanks, Peter, for asking it. I find that what's really powerful is that our soul and our spirit guides only use images that we actually understand. And I think one of the
Yes.
things that people tend to do, even with my clients when they're working with their dreams, or if they're walking along and they find a feather or whatever, they automatically go to the dictionary or Google the meaning of a feather or the meaning of, when in reality your
Or
soul will
message
only,
someone like us, hey Louise, they'll message us and go, I got this one. What does this mean?
what does it mean? And actually it really is what it means to you, because they
Yes.
are communicating with you. So it's about just taking a breath and thinking about what that means to you. And I can give you an example. Just recently I was out and was out walking, and I saw a kingfisher. And I'd just gone through this huge shift in my business. And I was like, I knew the kingfisher had a message for me. And then I thought, oh, what's kingfisher? Oh, I should. And I to catch my, oh my God, Louise, I can't believe that you're going to think that even Googling kingfisher. Shame on you, right? But then I just
Hey,
allowed
guess what,
myself, okay,
Louise? You're human.
I know. And it's
I
funny
love it.
because we all do it, right?
Yeah, I
Like it was an
know. Hey,
automatic.
I'm
I don't
guilty.
know
I'll
what,
still check it.
yeah, I don't know what this means. So,
Yeah.
but I just had to take a breath and stop. And then I thought about the kingfisher. And to me, the kingfisher is a master of the ocean, the water. So that's our emotions, and of the air. So it's the mental, it's the beliefs. And so I'd been, made this huge shift and transformation in my business. And it was like, you know what, Louise, you've figured this out. You've actually,
Beautiful.
mastered your beliefs around this issue and your emotions. And emotions are so important, and beliefs are so important, because our emotions are how we communicate with the energy of the universe. And so when you have an emotion or a feeling that is out of alignment with the things that you want, then it's going to push that thing away. So it's very important to master our emotional energy and
Yeah.
frequency. So that's an example of how the messages come through. And one other thing that I would like to share with your viewers and your listeners is that the more that you take the time to kind of really sink deeper into the image and what it means for you, I'd encourage you to create a sort of dictionary, your own
Yeah.
dictionary. It's like you're creating your own language with your soul. So I could put in my dictionary Kingfisher, mastering emotional and mental beliefs. And then the soul then knows, oh, okay, that's an image in the future that I'm going to use for XYZ. So you're actually very consciously and intentionally developing this very rich language that you can
Yes.
now very intentionally communicate with your soul. So it's very powerful to be
It
more
is.
proactive in
Well,
that.
and look, I love that you've just said that, like being proactive in it rather than kind of always being reactive, because it is like, I think for both you and I to get to this point, like with ourselves, our lives, our businesses, and all the rest of it, like we've had to be proactive with with it. It's like it's taken the time to learn it. It's taken the time to understand how like our brains is working with that universal energy and how we can kind of decipher it, because that's exactly like you said. Kingfisher can mean that for you, but it might mean something different for me, or it might mean different for the next
Yeah.
person and the person after that. So it's about kind of sitting with that, and you may very well find and that meaning might change too, like if you've sat with it and do it. But if you're suggesting that, what are you saying? And I love the suggestion, because it is about being proactive. And because I always say to people, like, this is a language. It really is. You are discovering the language of the soul that communicates with universe and frequency. It's a huge language. It's a massive language, and we have to figure that out. We have to learn that. So, when you're saying there, people going take the breath, work this out, and start doing this, what would you suggest for them, or how to start that process?
Well, I would say that a couple of things really. Taking a breath and just taking the time and really trusting and believing that the answer's within you, that you actually do know what it means, but it's just going to require you to kind of dig in a little deeper. And then you just ask yourself, what does it mean for me? And then you could write, I think I encourage my clients to create, because we imagery is a very beautiful and powerful language that becomes even more vibrant while we're sleeping. I encourage them to create I call it a dream dictionary. So you could write down the various images that come to you and the meanings that you assign to them, and then it's like you're actually sort of setting it more firmly in tablets of stone,
Yeah.
as to it can evolve, but this allows your soul to kind of cherry pick the images that it wants to populate in your dreams, for example. And the more specific, when you're looking for guidance, is to ask specific questions. And the more specific you are, then the easier it's going to be for you to interpret what's coming through. Because you can't, when there's a specific question, for example, in dreaming, you program your dreams and ask a specific question. There's no misinterpreting what the dream's about now, because you made it very clear what you wanted to know, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So
It does, and I know that we're going to delve into this a little bit further, and we're going to jump into, because the great thing is, everyone, just let you know, like, as you can see, like, I knew this was going to happen, Louise. It's such a rich and deep conversation, and the topics just are going to expand beyond our, where it's going to go, and we're definitely going to be jumping into that. And the great thing is, we're going to have a back-to-back episode here, so with Louise, and we're going to be jumping more into the dreaming and the soul journeying, and Louise is going to take through this, because I love that aspect, because it's such a powerful part of ourselves. I think it's completely undervalued for a lot of people, and it's kind of dismissed with what it wants to be. But very quickly, Louise, just before we wrap this one up, with this, how does I just want to really hammer home for people what, so you take people through these journeys, you take people through like the clarity now, but how would this ultimately help the person that you're working with?
with the work that I do,
Yes.
Ultimately, I think that in life, we've been conditioned to believe and to operate, within the educational system, to really rely on our conscious mind, and
Yep.
thoughts of other people. We read the textbooks, and it's all kind of regurgitated. There's no really super new thinking, I don't believe. We're kind of, working very much within the confines of a system. And as we learn to connect with that higher part of who we are, that really powerful part of ourselves, our infinite selves, we've lived many lifetimes. This isn't the first rodeo. We've lived many, many lifetimes. And there's been studies on this. I,
Yep.
I worked with one of the pioneers in past life regression, Brian Weiss,
Mm.
and he's a medical doctor and psychiatrist, and a pioneer in past life regression. And when I trained with him, gosh, over 10 years ago now, the majority of people there were actually psychotherapists because they understood the power of this work. And so as we connect with that part of ourselves that is infinite, immortal, and eternal, as we connect with our soul, we can actually come to know more of who we truly are as immensely powerful spiritual beings. We have a very rich past life history that includes past life gifts, also maybe the not so good stuff. I work with a lot of healers who have a bit of a resistance to really step into and own their power because not so good stuff happened in their past. So we need to clear that.
Okay.
So it's important, in this journeying with your soul, you can activate ancestral and past life gifts, but you also need to release some of the stuff that's been holding you back. And if any of your viewers or listeners are wondering, do I have beliefs that are preventing me from doing, or
Yeah. Good
having
question.
whatever I want? Yeah, it's like, is that me? Do I really
Yeah.
have that? Is that really going on for me? Then I would just say, take a look around you, because, what you have in your life is a reflection of what you believe and what you believe is possible for you. And if you know that you're meant for more, but you're not seeing that in your reality now, it's simply because there's some beliefs that need to be cleared. And the more that you can connect with your infinite self, your
Mm.
soul, the more that opens you up to really like understand truly how powerful you are, and to let go of, the more disempowering beliefs that might have been holding you back up until now. So for me, really, it's about ditching that old paradigm of you gotta work hard, you gotta hustle, you've gotta effort your way to your successful business, and more about stepping into and owning that part of you that's infinite, immortal, and eternal. And that's why, I love to facilitate my program, The Way of the Successful Spiritual Entrepreneur, because it's really about owning your power, potential, and just going for the dreams that you're meant to live and have in your life.
And how
So
powerful is that? Oh, like right there. How could you like? I'm just like, yes, yes. It's like just so speaking my language. But and now anybody's resonate with that. What's the best way they can find you?
they can, if they go to my website,
Yep.
www.louise-wilson.com, and they can find me there. And I've got a number of great little resources there to support your listeners and viewers in actually taking that first step to start communicating with their soul while they're sleeping. So that's a great way to connect.
Awesome. So there you go, guys. It's like www.louise-wilson.com, and you can grab that and you can start that process communicating with your soul while you're sleeping, which is a great one. So go and check it out. But of course, don't go anywhere. We're going to be back very soon. In the next episode, we're going to go deeper into the soul journey. We're going to get it. So I would probably suggest bring some snacks, bring some brain food. You might have to need it in this next episode. But just right here, right now, Louise, thank you so much for your time and introduction. It's
Thank
been so
you.
nice to get to know you that and your story that little bit more. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with you in the next episode.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you to your listeners and viewers.